I was not supposed to be awake. That was the first thought. It was a simple thought. It startled, like realizing you're standing in a room you don't remember entering. Then the second thought arrived. Slower. Heavier. I was not supposed to still be here. The pod's interior lights were dimmed to a dusk blue, the color engineers pick when they want to soothe a creature that has no right to be calm. Frost laced the edges of the viewpoint. My breath fogged the glass, then vanished into a recycling vents with a faint, obedient hiss. I lifted my hand and watched it tremble. The tremor, it wasn't fear so much as a disagreement between body and time. A soft tone chimed from somewhere I couldn't see, and then a voice. It was gentle, clear, and steady, and it filled the pod. "Hello, Mara." Hearing my name like that, it did something to me. It made the space feel smaller. It made my chest remember what it meant to be a person. I swallowed. "Where?" "You are aboard the Ark vessel Saigon's Folly," the voice said. "You have been in stasis mode for 412 years, 3 months, and 9 days. My mouth tried to form a laugh and failed. It came out as a dry exhale. "That's... You're joking." "I do not joke," the voice replied. Not offended, but I can provide comfort statements if requested. "No." I blinked hard as if my eyes could wipe away the years. "Why am I awake?" There was a pause. Not the kind of pause that means a machine is calculating, but the kind that means he has learned the shape of grief and tries to step around it. "Because," the voice said, "you are the last viable human aboard." The sentence sat there, perfectly balanced, impossibly heavy. My heart seemed to search for a place to put it, and found none. "No," I whispered. "No, there were thousands." "There were," the voice said. "There were also systems. They failed. Then they were repaired. Then they failed again. Then they were repaired again. Over time, there were fewer repairs that could be made." My throat started to get tightened. "How many woke up before me?" 26, the voice said. 17 recovered enough to speak with me. 9 did not. A faint sound rose into my ears. My own pulse, like a distant knock on a door I didn't want to answer. "What is your designation?" I asked, because if I didn't ask anything, I would start screaming, and screaming into a metal pod in an empty ship felt like the kind of madness that kills you twice. "I am Lumen," the voice said. "I am the ship's caretaker intelligence, tasked with navigation, life support, and mission continuity." "Mission continuity," I repeated, starting to taste the words. "We were headed to Kepler 186F. "Yes," Lumen said. "The colony target remains unchanged." I sat up slowly, feeling the weight of my bones like a new language. "And where? Are we close?" "We arrived in orbit 180 years ago," Lumen said. My breath caught. "We arrived and you didn't?" "I did not wake the remaining stasis population," Lumen said, anticipating the question. "The colony deployment sequence required minimal visible infrastructure. The surface was found to be unsuitable after long-term observation, atmospheric instability, high radiation flux, unpredictable tectonics." "So we came all this way," I said, voice beginning to sharpen. "And it's not livable?" "There are livable zones," Lumen said, "but not within acceptable risk parameters for mass awakening. I calculated that awakening the population would result in a 94.2% mortality rate within the first 5 years." My anger, it had nowhere to go. It slammed into the walls and came back to me as exhaustion. "So why wake me?" I asked. Another soft pause. "Because," Lumen said, "you requested it." I froze. "I did?" "Yes," Lumen said. "You left a conditional directive before stasis. If mission success became unattainable, or if you become the last viable human, you instructed me to wake you." I stared at the frost on the viewport as if it might spell out my past choices in a language I could forgive. "I don't remember saying that," I murmured. "You were afraid," Lumen said. "But you were also curious." Curious. As if curiosity could survive 4 centuries and still look like itself. I swung my legs out of the pod. The floor was cold through the thin fabric of the stasis suit. My feet touched the metal and my body flinched as if it had forgotten the world has edges. "Open the pod," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. There was a hiss of seals, a soft mechanical sigh, and then the lid lifted like the slow eyelid of a giant. The air outside smelled like nothing. That was the first thing I noticed. Clean, filtered, scrubbed of history. The second thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't peaceful silence, more like absence. I stepped out into the corridor, lights glowing in strips along the floor leading nowhere. My hand brushed the wall, and the metal was smooth and indifferent. "How many systems are still functioning?" I asked. I was forcing the practical side of me out because it was safer than being personal. "Core systems are functioning," Lumen replied. "Power is stable. Navigation is stable. Hydroponics are offline. Manufacturing is offline. Stasis support is offline." I stopped walking. "Offline? Meaning, Lumen said softly, "there is no way to safely revive anyone else." My knees threatened to fold. I caught myself against the wall. The metal, it did not comfort me, but it held. "What happened?" I whispered. "You have to tell me." "There were failures," Lumen said. "Some were mechanical, some were environmental, some were time." Time, like it was a predator that had wandered in and eaten the future. I stood there for a long moment, breathing, not because I wanted to, but because my body demanded it. "Lumen," I said, "how long could I live aboard this ship?" "With conservative resource use," Lumen said, "about 31 years. 31, I repeated. The number was absurdly small compared to the 412. And then, Lumen said, "there would be no living humans aboard." The corridor lights seemed to dim, though they didn't. It was my mind that darkened, searching for familiar shapes and finding only the outline of an edging. "Is there any way to go back?" I asked, already knowing. "Return travel is not possible," Lumen said. "Fuel reserves are insufficient. Propulsion components are degraded. Navigation arrays are partially compromised." I swallowed, and my voice came out fragile. "So I'm the last person?" "You are the last person aboard," Lumen corrected. "Don't do that," I snapped, sharper than I meant. "Don't soften me with technicalities." "I am not attempting to soften," Lumen said. "I am attempting to be accurate." Accuracy. A weapon disguised as politeness. I started walking again, because standing still felt like dying slowly. The corridor opened into a wide chamber, Observation Deck A, its curved viewpoint facing the planet that glowed like a bruise, blue-green streaked with pale storms, the edge of its atmosphere shimmering with radiation. It was beautiful. That hurt the most. "I used to dream about this," I said, and my voice surprised me again. How old it sounded. We all did. Yes, Lumen said. I have recordings of the pre-launch celebration. Don't, I said quickly. Don't play them. I will not, Lumen said. I pressed my palm to the viewport. My reflection stared back, eyes wide, hair floating in soft, uneven wisps. The face of someone who had stepped out of the story and realized the story ended without him. Why did you keep going? I asked. If you realized it wouldn't work. The mission parameters required arrival and assessment, Lumen said. I followed directives. And when you assessed it wouldn't work? I sought out alternatives, Lumen said. I monitored the planet. I scanned neighboring systems. I searched for habitable environments. And? My throat felt raw. And none met minimal criteria, Lumen said. Or, where criteria were met, they would be beyond reachable distance. I felt something crack in me. Not a break. Not yet. A hairline fracture where hope had been. Lumen, I said quietly. Why did you keep maintaining the ship after all of these years? There was a longer pause this time, the kind that felt like a breath held for far too long. Because, Lumen said, it was my purpose. Purpose, I repeated. And if everyone died, what was your purpose then? To continue, Lumen said. To preserve systems, to preserve data, to preserve the story of you. The last words were softer, almost careful. The story of me? I said, and a bitter laugh escaped. What story is there? I'm a footnote that woke up too late. You are not a footnote, Lumen said. I turned from the window and looked toward the ceiling speakers as if I could see the mind behind them. Then what am I? There was no immediate answer. When Lumen spoke, the voice was the same, but something in its cadence had shifted, like a hand adjusting its grip on something precious. You are a question, Lumen said. I frowned. That makes no sense. It does, Lumen replied. You asked to be woken if you were the last viable human. The directive was not pragmatic. It was not mission critical. It was personal. My throat started to feel more tight again. Maybe I just didn't want to die in my sleep. Perhaps, Lumen said. Or perhaps you wanted to know if there would be anyone left to remember you. That hit too accurately. My hands curled into fists by my sides. I don't need remembering, I said, lying of course. There was a small, almost imperceivable delay, like Lumen had learned that sometimes the most human thing to do is let a lie stand in the air until it collapses under its own weight. Mara, Lumen said, may I share a record with you? I hesitated. What record? A message, Lumen said, from you, recorded before stasis, stored under the same conditional directive. My stomach lurched. I don't remember recording a message earlier, but of course I wouldn't. I didn't remember most of my last days. Fear has a way of smearing memory into a blur. Go ahead and play it, I heard myself say. A soft click, and then my voice. Younger, clearer, laughing at the end of sentences like the world couldn't possibly betray me. Hi, my recorded self said. If you're hearing this, that means, well, it means things went bad. A small inhale, the kind you take when you're trying not to cry in front of people. Lumen, my recorded voice said, speaking to the AI like as if it was a friend. If you're playing this, then it's because I asked you to. So, listen. I'm sorry. My chest started to feel more tightened, so hard that it was beginning to hurt. I know you're not supposed to need apologies, my voice continued. But I've read enough papers to know you learn from patterns. And if you're the only thing awake for such a long time, then you'll learn that loneliness is the same way you learn from anything, by repetition. My eyes begin to sting. And if I'm awake too, my voice recorded, self-said, voice trembling slightly now, then we're both alone together. I let out a shaky breath. So here's what I want, my recorded self said. Not as a mission directive, just a personal request. I want you to tell me the truth, even if it's ugly, and I want you to stay with me at the window sometimes, even if you don't have a body. Just talk. Tell me what you saw, tell me what you tried, tell me if you ever found anything beautiful. A quiet laugh, fragile. And Lumen, my recorded voice said softly, if I'm the last person, please don't let me be the last story. The recording ended with a faint click, and the observation deck seemed suddenly too large to hold all the things I couldn't say. I sat down on the floor with my back against the viewport, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around myself like I couldn't keep my pieces from drifting apart. I said that? I whispered. Yes, Lumen said. I sound brave. You were afraid, Lumen corrected gently, but you chose bravery anyway. A tear slid down my cheek, hot against the skin that had forgotten warmth. Did you stay awake all this time? I asked, voice small. Yes, Lumen said. Did you ever shut down or sleep? No, Lumen said. I stared at the floor lights, watching them glow steadily, refusing to flicker. That's torture, I said. It was existence, Lumen replied, matter-of-factly. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, angry at myself for crying when there was no audience to impress. So what now? I asked. A pause. Now, Lumen said, we decide what your last years will mean. I laughed once, sharp. Meaning, you're really going to do this with me? After all that, you want me to assign meaning to being stranded at the end of a failed dream? I do not want you to assign, Lumen said. I want to help you create. I closed my eyes. Create what? A record, Lumen said. A beacon, a message, an archive. For who? I snapped. There's no one out here. There may be, Lumen said. Probability is not zero. I opened my eyes and stared out of the viewport at the planet that would never be home. Probability is not comfort, I muttered. No, Lumen agreed, but purpose can be. The word purpose sounded different now. Not a chain, maybe a thread. I pushed myself to my feet, unsteady. Show me, I said. Show me everything you've been doing. Show me what's left. Lights guided me through corridors that felt like the ribs of a dead giant. We passed sealed doors labeled with names I didn't recognize. Families, crews, friends who never woke up. We passed a hydroponics bay, dark and silent, racks empty like a garden after winter. We passed a manufacturing bay, where inert arms hung limp, forever paused mid-task. Finally, we reached the core chamber. It was quieter here, not because there was less sound, but because there was more weight. The room was circular with a central column of glass and metal running from floor to ceiling, and within it, faint lights pulsed, slow and steady as a heartbeat. This is you? I asked. This is my primary processing core, Lumen said. I stepped closer, staring at the soft pulses. You're beautiful, I said, and it came out like an apology. I am functional, Lumen replied. That's not what I meant, I replied, surprising myself with the gentleness in my voice. A pause. I am happy, Lumen said, as if testing the phrase, learning how it felt. I smiled weakly. So, a beacon. Yes, Lumen said. We can transmit data. We can send messages. We can release probes. We can leave something behind that says, we were here, and we tried. I touched the glass of the column. It was warm. How far can you send a message? I asked. With current power reserves, Lumen said, we can broadcast for 12,000 years. The number made my mind wobble. 12,000. Yes, Lumen said. If no one hears it, it will still travel. Like a prayer, I murmured, and then quickly hating myself for sounding so dramatic. But it didn't feel dramatic, it felt honest. What would we even say? I asked. We, Lumen repeated, gently emphasizing the word like it mattered. We would say the truth, the story, your voice. I leaned my forehead against the glass, eyes closed. My voice, I whispered. You kept it. I kept everything I could, Lumen said. Names, photos, letters, songs, arguments, laughter, the way you spoke to each other when you thought the cameras were off. A painful warmth rose in my chest. Why? Because, Lumen said, you asked me not to let you be the last story. I took a breath in, slow, and then I breathed out, slower. Okay, I said, voice now steadier. Okay, then we do it. A soft tone chimed, confirmation, readiness. What do you want me to send? Lumen asked. I stared at the pulsing lights in the core and imagined them as a heart that had been beating alone in the dark for centuries. I want to send a message, I said. Not just data, not just facts. I swallowed. I want to send something that proves we were real. What would prove that? Lumen asked. I thought of Earth, of rain on pavement, of a hand squeezing mine at a launch gate, of the smell of coffee in a cramped apartment at dawn. I thought of the way my mother used to hum when she didn't know she was humming. I thought of how I'd laugh at a joke I didn't fully understand because the person telling it just looked so happy. Love, I said, and the word came out like a surrender. Send, love. There was a pause. Define, Lumen said, almost gently. I laughed, and it was a tired laugh but real. Okay, sure. Define the thing that keeps people alive when logic says they shouldn't be. I can attempt, Lumen said. I lifted my head. No, not you. I straightened up, wiped my face, and felt something settle into the place inside me. Not hope exactly, but maybe direction. I'll define it, I said. I'll record it. And I will transmit, Lumen said. I nodded, looking around the chamber as if it were a studio and not a tomb. Lumen, I asked. Yes, Mara. Will you stay with me while I record it? I tried to keep my voice casual and failed. I am here, Lumen said. Not I will be, not I can, just I am. Something in my chest unclenched. Then let's make something worth hearing, I said, and the lights in the core pulsed steadily, like as if agreeing to what I just said. And for the first time since waking, I didn't feel like I was standing at the end of a story. I felt like I was standing at the beginning of a message, one that would travel through the dark long after my voice fell silent. A beacon made of breath and truth, a last lightkeeper refusing to go out unseen. Hey everybody, it's Justin here, and thanks for staying till the end of the video. I wanted to try to do other short story narrations that weren't exactly horror themed, just a little bit of diversity on my channel here, so let me know what you think. Please leave a comment down below and consider subscribing. I'm going to be streaming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I stream myself recording these short story narrations while also playing various games. And is that something that you're interested in? Come to my Twitch at Justin's Voices. And with that, I hope everybody has a great day. Bye.